Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. And so is this dear young lady who's sitting to the left of your screen. Her name is Isabella Bedoya. Isn't that musical? Isabella Bedoya. She's a music business consultant, former A&R director for Sony Music. I mean, she has worked with many, many celebrities as well as independent artists, helping them to move the needle forward in their career. And we have learned so much from her. I know her offline because of all of the accolades and accomplishments and achievements Isabella has attained. Most importantly, she is a member of the EntreMusician Mastermind Group. And oh boy, she that's a crowning achievement for her. I think she puts that at the top of her list. But we're going to talk about all kinds of great things because she has not only tips, she has some sound advice. So if you're just breaking into this platform of being an EntreMusician, or you've been in the game for 20 years plus, you can still learn from Isabella. But before I welcome her to the program and before I grill her with 1,000 questions, I want you to know that if you are a member of the EntreMusician, which you can do by going right now to the EntreMusician.com, clicking on the backstage pass, there's going to be some bonus material because there's going to be some things here that you can glean from. But if you are a subscriber to the EntreMusician, then she's going to give you some real gems at the backstage pass. So you want to prepare to go and do that. And finally, what I want to say is we definitely want to reach out to those who are joining us on VISD. If you're joining us on VISD or on the Armstrong Cable Network, we want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We welcome you. We know that we're very new on Armstrong. So Greg and your team, thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting the EntreMusician. We love you so much. But here, without further ado, is the wonderful Isabella. Lady, sister, girlfriend, what's happening? How are you?
Hey, Jerry, thanks so much for having me on the show. What an amazing intro.
It's what we do. Thanks so much for just all your help again with you being a part of the EntreMusician Mastermind. I mean, you have really kind of lit a fire under the rest of us to kind of step it up a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get to where you are? Are you a musician?
So, funny enough, I'm not a musician. I mean, not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. Not yet. I don't want to say no forever, but not yet. Funny story though, how I got here was like from it's just been something that I've loved since I was a child. I used to back in the day when songs would be like released on like forums and blogs. I remember back in the day with like mixtapes.
Right.
Yeah. So I would always be like going through the blogs and like collecting all the cool songs and sharing with my friends. So I always kind of had a little knack for discovering new music before it became popular.
Yeah, man. So that kind of sucked you in. That was the magnet. I mean, you decided at some point, I'm going to get into this business. What was that nucleus?
Yeah, I didn't even like think about it like that. Like back then I was like, this is really cool. I love music. I love everything about it. I always wanted to learn production, so I would play around with it. I would write songs, stuff like that. Um but I always thought I wanted to go to medical school. And it was just
Okay.
because that was just like family and like this is music is a hobby, which happens to every single artist. Music is a hobby.
Right.
And
Get a
then
real
you're gonna go
job.
to medical school. Yeah. So it was funny though, like growing up I had my room, like it was the most excuse me, it was the most like musically oriented room
Mhm.
in the house, and it was just something that was always there, but I never really fully explored it as an artist.
Did you come from a big family? Do you have siblings who are?
Yeah, I have siblings. I have two brothers.
Mhm.
We grew up with my mom and my grandparents in the same house.
Mhm.
So we were like a pretty big household. And my grandfather was more like entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
So he was always like reading like Harvard like business books and Harvard medical books. So he was
Wow.
like, yeah, it was his dream for sure for me to go to medical school. And I think that's kind of where it happened.
Wow. So now you originally hail from Florida, right? But you
Yeah, I'm from
obviously
Florida.
you had to go to LA to get hooked up with Sony or
Yeah,
How'd that happen?
so I'm from Florida. I actually grew up in Peru, South America. And then what happened was when I graduated from FSU, I came back home and then I was like trying to figure out, well, what do I do with my life? I have a college degree, but no one wants to hire me.
Right.
Everybody goes through that, it's the
Yeah.
typical college scenario.
So what was the
So
major? What was the major in college?
it ended up being food and nutrition science.
Okay.
So I was trying to get jobs as private chef or as just working in restaurants, like management roles in restaurants, stuff like that.
Hmm.
No one was hiring me except my private chef venture that I started on a Facebook group. So
Wow.
um so I kind of like thought, like okay, my entry point to LA, I remember at the time it being like very inachievable moving to LA because like you have to pay for rent and first month, last month, and you're a college grad, no job, so it's like impossible,
Right.
So I was like, well, what if I become a private chef for like a family there?
Mm.
So so I kind of got a little bit of exposure through like Facebook and social media here in Florida,
Hmm.
and long story short, that ended up getting me a job in a house in Beverly Hills. So I had
Really?
like 2 weeks to pack up and move. And I knew that the second that I moved to LA, that was the second that I could actually do whatever I want in music. I just have to figure out, how to actually get there. So that was kind of like my backstory.
Okay, so you're cooking for this family,
Yeah.
right? And does anybody in the family were they vice president of Sony or?
No, no, no. They were just a wealthy family from like real estate. They
Mhm,
didn't really have anything to do in the music industry.
mhm.
But it was just like the fact of being in LA. So this is kind of like my secret weapon. It's just networking and building relationships, which is something that everybody should always be doing, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you know. It really comes down to who you know and what you do with who you know.
Mm,
So
that's good.
like yeah, that was pretty much like the my biggest um skill or like testimony was just being able to connect with the right people. So when I moved to LA, my very very first night in LA, I'm like on Facebook and I'm looking for events, and it happened to be like Oscars weekend. So I found like all these like Oscars parties and networking
Mm,
events and stuff going on, so I went to those. First night in LA, I'm like meeting people that I've never, like the CEO of Playtex and like someone that's been in the movie industry for forever. And just slowly like that, I started building relationships. And like 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in LA of constantly networking on my time off, that's kind of how I got um my career started in music. So it
mhm.
was just a lot of networking, shaking hands, and putting in that work and effort because it does take some energy, of course.
Sure. So now, how are you juggling this with making sure that this family is well fed and then networking at night? What's what's that about?
Yeah, that was interesting. So it was cool because I didn't really have to worry about their breakfast. So all I had to worry about was like lunch and dinner. And they all had kind of like a hectic lifestyle, like, kids
Mhm,
going to school, kids after schools, activities, work, whatever.
mhm.
So I figured like the food is gonna sit there till everyone eats anyway. So I figured if I can just make dinner and fulfill my responsibilities and have the dinner before the time that the first person comes home for dinner, then I pretty much have the rest of the time off. So and they were like cool with it. They were like super chill. So like I didn't really have much to do at night.
Mhm.
So that's when I used the time to like go out and network. And I didn't have to wake up early in the morning, so I could actually stay up late,
Right,
and music industry runs late anyway.
right,
So
right.
that was one thing. The other thing too was between lunch and dinner, there's usually downtime. So this just wasn't with this one family. With every job that I've had as a private chef,
Mhm.
I usually have like 2-3 hour downtime in between lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
So I would use that time to like go on the computer, run a couple of errands here and there, whatever it was. So like usually at that time, I would either go to a studio or like do kind of like more of the daytime activities of networking.
Yeah.
But a lot of it really just came from like the nighttime activities of like meeting people, then interacting with other people, then every if you look at it like a video game, every person that you meet, you
Yeah.
unlock a series of levels, you
Mm,
know?
that's
So
good.
yeah, so that was pretty much my biggest thing was just gamifying the whole experience of like, now that I know you, you know a bunch of people, and now and same with me, right? So you know me,
Right.
I know a bunch of people, and we can connect our people, and then that's when the magic happens.
Mhm.
So
So
yeah,
now,
that's
so to dig into that, then with what you just said, because that's beautiful. I find so in your downtime, and then even in the evening with networking following through, you've reduced this whole game to the one magic word that all entre musicians must know, and that is hustle. Because
yeah,
you were absolutely doing the hustle in between there. So there was no downtime because all you did was you set the day job here and you picked up the hat and you put that on and said, okay, now it's hustle, right?
exactly.
Um,
100%. It really is all hustle. Even till this day, even though I have like structures and stuff like that, it's always hustling. Like you always have to be in motion and doing things, and otherwise you get stuck.
Absolutely. Jiminy. Okay, so what level did you unlock? Because when you were doing the hustle, were you saying, "Hey, one day I'm hustling because I'm putting this blueprint together for the fame hackers," or I'm hustling because I want to get into A&R? What was the focus during that time?
To be honest, the I think one of the biggest things was that I didn't have a focus. My focus was just figure out a way to get into the music industry. Had I had a focus, it probably would have been better and faster and like clearer.
Mhm.
Um, I even when I got my job as an A&R, I had no idea what that meant.
I see.
Like I'm sitting at like orientation and I'm googling what is an A&R.
That's
I'm like I
excellent.
made it this far, you know. So,
That's
so
fantastic.
yeah, but it's funny because like as I'm reading what's an A&R, I'm like, I've been doing this my whole life. This is so cool.
Wow. No, that's excellent. That really is. That's one of the lessons that we have taught on the Entre Musician is always say yes. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out as you go along, but yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's true too, right, Jerry? Because like if you trust yourself that you're able to do whatever it is, then like there really shouldn't be a lack of confidence at not being able to do whatever's at hand.
That is correct. That is correct. And
Yeah.
that's how we build. You know, that's
Yeah.
all entree musicianship is about. It's just going to do it. We're figuring it out as it's going along. It's not going to be perfect, but that's why there's version one, version two, version three, and you continue to
Exactly.
perfect it as it's happening. Now that you are settled into the Fame Hackers, by the way, I love the website. We're going to talk about that
Thank you.
in just a few minutes. But what are the three keys or tips that you find yourself giving all new entre musicians who reach out to you? What are the three things you find yourself saying the most? You got to do this, this, or this.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So like three biggest tips. First is to treat your music career as a brand. So
Mhm.
like understand that you're a brand. It's not a hobby. You actually have to generate revenue.
That's right.
So number one is act like a brand. Number two is create offers so that you can monetize your brand.
Mm.
So offers, sometimes we'll see merch, we'll see ticket sales, stuff like that. But if you get really good at creating offers for like every level of like revenue, so like you have your $0 entry point all the way through like your $3,000 offer, then you have a little bit of everything. And it's kind of like a menu at a restaurant where you're like, I want to skip the appetizer. I want to go for like the full works.
Hmm.
And if you want to do that, you have to have like kind of like a menu where people can select what they want. Um,
Excellent.
so yeah, so second tip would be creating your offers, and then third tip would be brand loyalty, which is your fans. So when you're focused on brand loyalty and like creating that like experience for your fans and like having amazing, if you really think about it, fans are customers. So
Mm.
it's really just having amazing customer skills,
Mhm.
customer service skills,
Yeah.
so that they can stick around, they can be happy, they can support you. And when you create that brand loyalty, what happens is they stay around for a long
Mhm.
time. Like we see Britney Spears fans, like they're like hashtag free Britney till this day. Um, so like, or I don't know if it's hashtag free Britney, but there's a hashtag going around with something that's happening with her.
Mhm.
Um, but this is what we see is like that fandom that sticks around. That's what makes your career to be like long lasting and not just like a one hit wonder.
Sure.
So if you can figure out how to provide amazing customer service skills, monetize your offers, like create and monetize your offers, and understand that you're a brand, like those are the three most important things.
Mm. Well, now I think I know the answer to this question, but since you're the expert and I'm still learning, I want to know how you answer this. What do you think? Because customer service is absolutely on point. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for any entree musician to not think of himself or herself as in customer or as in sales or to be a customer service provider? What do you think that obstacle is?
I think it's a mindset shift.
Mhm.
I think it's a mindset shift because when we see it from the music lens, we see it as, for example, Drake's an example, right? So Drake's an artist. He's blown up. He's like this global brand, but because he's at that level, he's
Mhm.
not necessarily gonna like shake every single person's hands.
Mhm.
But Drake in like 2009, he was shaking everybody's hands.
Mhm.
He was hustling. He was out there. He was talking to people, releasing music, leaking music on blogs. So like it's that disconnect of like artists, they see the end product,
Mhm.
and when they're starting off, they want to start off as the end product, but
Mhm.
there's a whole thing that people had to do before they became that global brand.
That's true. That's
So
true.
I think it's just like if you are going to compare yourself, because I hear this all the time too, like I want to be the next Beyonce, the next Rihanna, the next this, the next that. That's great that you want to be that. Just take it back to like their day one. What did their day one, their level one look like? And then do it better than them. Like
Jeez.
learn from their mistakes. That's the beautiful thing. They did
Jeez.
it already. So learn from
Wow.
their mistakes.
Man, that's I love you. that's that's what's up right there because the research, I mean, it really is about doing your homework. And where I failed and where I failed miserably is because I did not do my homework. I did not do my research. I did not watch the career of someone that I'm trying to emulate or a record company or anything and see, the pitfalls. So what I started doing was immersing myself in documentaries and autobiographies because many of the quote unquote stars, celebrities, they will tell you the low places in their life, and you can take that and tack it on and go, okay, don't want to do that. So you're right about that. That's an excellent answer. Now I want to ask you because you've worked with so many celebrities as well as indie artists. Does an independent artist today actually need a major record deal with all the tools and technology at our disposal? Why or why not?
So that's an amazing question. So really, I think the role of the music of the major label or the label in general, I think the role has to change.
Mm.
Um, because right now, the way that it's worked forever, it's like they give you an advance, you get signed, you produce the music, you're in a contract to now produce music for the label. So if it changes to the part of like, why did that artist sign in the first place? Excuse me.
Sure.
Why did the artist sign in the first place? It was most likely because of the flashy amount of money that they were being offered. Um, Nowadays, if you build your career, if you kind of like take the startup approach of like, are you familiar with like apps in the startup in the tech world? Where
Hmm.
yeah, so like they bootstrap their careers,
Hmm.
they bootstrap their companies, and then they get like venture capitalists to fund the companies.
Yeah.
So if you take a similar approach for like musicians and artists, and you're like, okay, well, all I really need is social media presence and offers, and then you have money coming in, and when you have money coming in, you can fund your own like music career, your lifestyle. So now you kind of hold control of like, you hold majority control of like what's going to happen to your music, how you're going to continue releasing, so on and so forth. At that point, you can then actually seek investors or like angel investors or whatever it is,
Hmm.
because now you have a proven track record that you can make money with your music.
Hmm.
And now it's like for investors, that's what they want to see. Like labels want to see that too. They want to see how can we invest money like $1 and get $3 back, because
Mm.
that's their business.
That's right.
So as an artist, do you have to sign a record deal? Not necessarily. And the reason why I said earlier it's the labels kind of have to change a little bit now is because the deals are already created in a way where it's unfair to the artist.
Hmm.
So the way that the ideology that I have is, if an artist possesses all the talents, all the skills, and they know how to do it without without the help of a label, it just kind of makes sense that they continue doing what they're doing,
Yeah.
and if anything, hire. So
Yeah.
like if you want
Yeah.
to work with a label, hire a manager from the label. Don't necessarily like do a 360 deal.
Hmm.
Or you can do single releases, right? You don't necessarily have to do a whole 360 deal where they take ownership of everything, and then they control when you release or how you release or what you release.
Correct. That's very, very good. I think that's, and you know this from being in the Entre Musician, that's what we try to learn. I mean, no one comes to the table like, hey, we got this, we got this. It's a learning curve, but the primary the premise is the fact that, well, we really don't need a label to do this. If we do it right, we can set that parameter for ourselves, like you said, for our lifestyle, for what we need to actually hit our budget, and then begin to do some innovative things that really take us up the wire.
Absolutely.
What you said, though, with respect to the unfair agreements that are offered, and I don't want to like jack on major labels, but there are the 360 deal sucks. That's everybody knows that by now. But what do you think about the unfair treatment or the unfair advantage that streaming companies have over the artist? I mean, we don't even get a half a penny per stream. What do you talked about the ideology changing? What do you think about
Yeah.
that? Do you think that'll
I
change?
think it should change. It's funny because I don't use Spotify. Like that's how much I don't agree with them. Um,
That's why I love this girl. I love her.
but it's funny because like people will think I'm crazy because I'm in music and I should know everything there is about Spotify, but I just don't agree with what they're doing.
I
Like
agree.
the CEO released an article last year or the
Yeah.
middle of last year saying that okay, so get this. There's 7 million creators on Spotify,
Mhm.
right? About back then it was about 40,000 songs were being released daily. Now it's like 60,000 songs or something like that. And the
Daily.
creator daily, right? It's like insane. So then the creator the CEO goes has a press release that says the reason uh, he pretty much says something about like artists should actually release music on a daily basis if they want to cut through the noise. So then I was just like, you have no idea. You have no idea what it takes to
Exactly.
actually create a song,
That's
right? And
exactly
mix
right.
and master the song and
That's
the
exactly right.
inspiration, the talent, the skill, all of the money and the time and energy that goes
Sure.
into one track.
Sure.
So it's not the problem is not that you are not creating music daily and submitting daily. The problem is that you're just not letting each song breathe and like actually taking the time to craft the song to be relatable to your audience. So I really disagree with like Spotify's
Yeah.
ideologies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing too that they released recently that was just kind of like this is insane. So 7 million creators on the app on Spotify, 15,000 are actually generating 50K or more from streaming.
Mm.
7,000 100K plus. So when you look at the total 7 million,
Yeah.
that's like not even 1%,
That's correct.
right?
That's
That's not
correct.
even 1%. And then it's crazy because like there's so many companies that they provide these like fake services for playlisting and so much room for artists to actually get scammed. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, for what? For like 0.008 cents? Like it's not even a penny.
Exactly right.
So it's like
Exactly
who's
right.
actually earning the money there? The artist,
Yeah.
the one that's actually doing all the work,
Right.
or the company that's putting the platform. So I really disagree with Spotify. I really think that there should be some kind of reform.
Sure.
Um
Sure.
I think now with like blockchain and NFTs and everything, I'm hoping that there's gonna be maybe like a blockchain powered streaming service. I don't even know how that would work.
Right.
There's an idea for all the tech people
Right.
listening. Um
Or
but I
you, so
really
you
think
can hustle during interviews. After the interview is over, you can go and make that happen. That's what you do.
yeah, yeah. So if anyone can figure out that problem, you would honestly make the music industry a much better place.
Absolutely. And the one thing that kills me about Spotify and other streaming services like it is the quarterly reports, because they are in the billions,
Yeah.
and the artist has a 0.008 is just incredible. I think, and we can go down this street just a couple more minutes, because I do want to ask you about the website, which I think is incredible. I think the services that you provide are incredible. So we definitely want to get into that. But with respect to a couple of things you said about Spotify and other streaming services, is I think that there should be a huge education campaign to the consumer as far as what's happening, because we a young rapper that I work with, Latency, he and I are releasing a single tomorrow. Now we are indie flow artists, and we've talked about indie flow before. So indie flow, like CD Baby, is an aggregate which automatically sends it to Pandora, Spotify, etc. That's but our campaign will be when this single drops is to ask for the download, to ask for the 99 cent, because when you, the consumer, walks into a Walmart or Walgreens or wherever you shop, you actually pick up an item and you take it to a cash register. Something got lost in between the music being a commodity to something that you just expect to happen for free, when Isabella, as you correctly said, to record, mix, and master, not just the time, the love, and the energy, but the money that goes into it, whether you're doing it yourself by providing the software, purchasing the software, or going to other professional engineers to make that happen. There's a process that happens. We had to call in the plumber the other day. He didn't say, "Hey Jerry, I love you, we're just going to fix this because, hey, you're a musician." No, he charged us. You know what I mean? And so we really do need a campaign that educates the public as far as what's going on. Do you agree with that?
I agree wholeheartedly with that, because if you really think about it, the way that musicians are treated, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So
Yeah,
from the moment that we're young kids, don't do music. It's a hobby. You're gonna fail. You're gonna be
that's
homeless. You're
correct.
gonna not make money. They condition you to believe that you're worthless if
Yes.
you're a musician.
Hmm.
Then you
Yeah.
go and become a musician, and then society thinks that musicians are worthless. So
Yeah.
then people like Spotify, and they say, "Oh, you're an artist. There's a billion of you guys. You'll
Yeah.
be happy with like $1 royalty check every like 4 months or whatever."
Correct.
So it's like, yeah, no wonder they're starving artists, because they literally are conditioned to believe it.
Sure.
And then every program out there that's supposed to help artists
Yeah.
conditions or is aligned with the whole belief of starving artists.
Hmm. And Danny Eck, the president, he's a drummer. He's a musician, who started
Crazy.
Spotify. Is it, the founder? I mean, so that's one thing. And another thing that you said, because we have done a video on this, and the video is on etymology and what you call the self-fulfilling prophecy of musicians. Because the first thing that a musician says is, "I play." I'm going to play. We have a gig, and I was looking at the etymology is, all right, so you have a gig and you guys are going to play, we're going to do this, we're going to jam, or are you going to have a performance? I'm performing at da da da.
Yeah.
So it's how you see yourself, and how you see yourself, like you said, the mindset shift really begins to build inroads as to, now because I am providing you a service, I expect something in return. You understand what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it really comes down to skills, right? So we see it in today's world, the way that we see it, and we get hit by ads all the time of like, learn a high income skill, learn how to sell, learn how to copyright, learn how to do this. Like we get targeted by ads all the time for like high income skills, but music is one of the most, in my opinion, music is one of the most important skills to know, because through copywriting, yeah, you can actually tell people how to like buy something, benefits and all that. But
Sure.
through music, you can help, like you can heal people going through problems. You can help people come out of dark times. You can shift the way of society thinks. You can move, like actually create a movement. You can shape society. So it has so much power that,
Absolutely.
like, I don't know if you go to like music festivals, but like when you go to like ultra or like the EDM types of music festivals,
Hmm.
it's all you see is like this, everybody is connecting through one language, because there's people from like Europe, people from like all over the world. Not everyone speaks English, but everybody knows that they can connect through the language of music.
That's
And
absolutely right.
especially in EDM, where you'll see a lot of like peace and love, and so it's like it really is so powerful that as a society, I 100% agree there has to be a re-education about it, because it's something that is so powerful, but it's so lowly valued.
Sure.
And if there was a shift, there would be so many artists that could actually live a living with this
Yes.
and help society with whatever. We see it
Absolutely.
all the time, like major artists or even emerging artists, they get fans coming up to me of like, your song saved me from like suicide, or I tattooed lyrics because it helped me go through this, or
That's correct.
whatever. So yeah, it's very, very powerful.
That's absolutely right. And as a matter of fact, Andre musician Andrew Slater, we just interviewed him a few days back, and his songs, 90% of his songs are to help, especially with his lyrics, to help people who are overcoming depression and
That's
overcoming
beautiful.
anxiety. So that's where his artistic focus is on. And yes, it is helping to change people's lives. So yeah, it's not just a service, it's not just plumbing or electrician. It's really about spirit and about soul and about the human dignity, and uplifting the human spirit. So
Yeah.
I agree. So we, with the education of the consumer, there should also be an education of the musician too. And there was this thing where we're in the activist type social cultural, standing against some things that are not right. There should be some musicians, enough of us, who raise our voice and say, we're not going to put our music here. We're being disrespected, we're being dishonored, and there has to be enough of us who do it, because man, 40,000, 60,000 uploads to Spotify a day is it's ridiculous. It devalues the art.
It's ridiculous. And it's not only like Spotify that's winning. Because then you have I did a breakdown the other day for one of the artists that I'm working with right now, and she was like, should I use Patreon? And
Mm,
I was like, well, Patreon's gonna ask for like 10%
mhm,
on the back end, right?
mhm.
So then I did a breakdown and I was like, excuse me, I was like, Patreon's gonna ask for 10%. TuneCore is gonna ask for this. C Baby's gonna ask for this. Manager's gonna ask for this. Da 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 is gonna ask, like, everyone's gonna ask for this. What's the artist actually left with? Like 3 to 10% or something like that. So
Correct.
it's like the artist has to front everything, has to
Right.
actually invest their time, energy, and money. Um, and then at the end of the day, everybody gets to eat from that pie except for the actual artist. So that's why, and I think we're very aligned on this, where there has to be a kind of like a revolution of like it should be like 90% artists, 10% everyone else.
Correct. Correct. I agree
Yeah.
100,000%. I really do. Now, wow, there's more that we can say about that, but maybe we'll discuss some of that. As I said, if you are a subscriber to the Entre Musician, there's going to be some bonus conversation that happens behind the backstage. So stay tuned for that. But I want you to know about thefamehackers.com, because that is a great website. You have exciting content, plus we talked about educational. You have a 30-minute video, and then you also have an insanely ridiculously low price $49 boot camp. Can you just tell us about that? Because that's insane. It's not 149, it's not 349, it's $49. Tell us about the boot camp.
Yeah, I actually did that intentionally because I know that that boot camp could easily be like $1,000 course.
Easy.
But again, trying to help like artists and trying to actually, earlier this year, my mission was like impact is bigger than income,
Mhm.
so that's why I priced it so
Wow,
low. And
that's good.
it's incredible because I also understand that the pandemic happened. Music industry was the most affected industry, so it was a way to like give back and also help artists. So what the boot camp does essentially is it's 5 days worth of information, like content, and it's about finding out, like, it's kind of like the stepping stones of like finding out who you are as an artist, who your ideal fans are, where to find them, how to target them, how to create content that resonates, um how to actually use social media correctly. There's so many theories out there. A
Mm,
lot I've worked so much in social media. I've done a lot of digital marketing, and I can tell you 95% of the stuff that people are saying is absolute fluff.
mm,
So yeah, it's just like, well, it's really cool because the people that are taking the boot camp, the results have been insane. Like this one guy messaged me that he actually booked a tour because he started showing up online and the tour manager found him through his content. This other one that just took it, she was getting like around like 200 to 500 views on her reels. The second she started applying everything, like one of her reels hit like almost 500K views, and all of them have been getting over 10K views, and it's insane. So it's really just learning how to use social media correctly so you can grow a fan base, and then you can monetize your fan base.
that's
And
excellent.
then that's pretty much what we were talking about. The three biggest things is understanding your brand,
Yeah.
monetizing your brand, and then brand loyalty.
That's fantastic. And here's what's even better. Well, I won't say better, but here's what's equally cool. Let's put it that way, is because even if right now you're just starting out, you're watching this and you don't have the $49, which I think is very, very, very low, very fair, there is that 30-minute class that you have. So talk about that, because you can just get on and get 30 minutes of valuable content to push you on your way.
Yeah, absolutely. The 30-minute masterclass is essentially just like 6 shifts that you should take in order to monetize your music.
Mhm.
And again, it's going through very similar principles. And also
Mhm.
one more thing too, Jerry. What we can also do, I can send you a PDF to send your subscribers,
Excellent.
which has kind of like 7 steps to grow your fan base. And
Excellent.
then it's a guide that I wrote that I think that would put them on a really good start. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff on the website, and it's actually being redone right now, but a lot of the stuff on the website is just free resources,
Yeah.
ways to actually help you and empower you. And then of course there's going to be some lower ticket offers,
Mhm.
but yeah, the majority of it, the whole purpose is to like actually help and re-educate the music industry and help artists.
Now, what do you find to be the greatest challenge for doing the work that you do as a consultant? Is there something that's
Yeah.
what's the greatest one? What would you say?
The greatest challenge is getting people out of this brainwash that so many artists have been brainwashed that they need playlisting, they need
Mm,
press, and they need ads in order to be successful. And my biggest challenge has been re-educating them and like getting them away from being this brainwashed. Because like, for example, if we take a dentist, for example, right?
yeah.
If you're a dentist and I come to you and I'm like, hey Jerry, hey Dr. Jerry, I'm gonna sell you a marketing campaign.
Mhm.
After this marketing campaign, you're not going to make any money because we're literally just going to just push traffic to you. I don't really care what happens to your traffic.
Wow.
You're going to be like, are you crazy? You're like, I'm a business. I need to make my money back so I can hire you.
Right.
So marketers, playlisters, people are doing press, they're selling based on the pain point of you want exposure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But as an artist, it's not just exposure that you need, it's a way to make money so you can
Mhm.
continue to invest in exposure.
Mhm.
So as a former marketer, I'm always telling people, don't listen to the marketers because they want to sell you, like they want to sell you the exposure. But if I was, for example, if now going back to the dentist example,
Yeah.
if I go to Jerry again, like, hey, Dr. Jerry, we're gonna sell you a marketing campaign. We're gonna sell your low ticket offer of white teeth cleaning, white, what's it called? Like teeth
Yes.
whitening, teeth cleaning. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
$40, $50. We're gonna sell that. We're gonna run ads, drive traffic to that. At the end of the campaign, you can expect for every dollar that you put in, $3 back.
Mhm.
Would you like to get started? As a business owner, you're like, that
By all
makes
means.
sense.
That's right.
But artists don't see that part.
That is correct.
So it's like that re-education of like, yes, you have a song, but how are we going to generate money with offers to continue to promote that song?
That's
Because
absolutely
another
right.
thing that I hear all the time, I had an ad running, but I ran out of money, so I couldn't continue my campaign.
Mhm.
And like that alone is a red flag. So long story
Mhm.
short, that is my biggest problem, or not problem, but challenge
Challenge.
of
Yeah.
like, yeah, of like having to re-educate artists, and especially when you start talking to managers that have been in the industry for longer
Yeah.
and they think they know how it works, it's like that doesn't work anymore.
That's exactly
So
correct.
it's challenging being in that spot of like, I can show you how to do it better
Mhm.
if you just actually are open-minded enough to actually giving it a shot.
And like you said, don't be brainwashed.
Yeah.
The one thing that we staple at the Entre Musician is you're not just a musician, because I
Yeah.
think that most artists come to the table and that's all we care about. I mean, it's the most natural. It flows from us. It's our emotions, and so we're thinking about the music. The music has to be right. The mix has to be right. The master has to be right. But those things that market it, those things that are business related, we kind of lay to the side. And again, I've lost a lot of time until I started thinking of myself as an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneurial musician, and so are you. And
Yeah.
so these things that Isabella is sharing is you got to. That's terrible English, but you must marry the two of them together. And another thing that I learned in radio that you piggybacked on as far as ad campaigns are concerned, the one thing in radio I learned with respect to that is you don't want to buy the story, you want to be the story. So if you are the story, if there's something compelling about you, you sell. That story sells. But if you buy it, if you're just raking out dollars, they don't care what happens. Thank you. They collect the money and this is what you want. Yeah, okay. Typeset it, send it out. Whether it's hard copy or online, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's why I love the EntreMusician so much, because you married the two concepts so beautifully with the name and the branding and everything. That's really what it boils down to, is just understanding that you're an entrepreneur in the music industry. Um and also what you mentioned right now, just to piggyback on that too, about selling the story. So especially nowadays, now that you have free marketing techniques like TikTok, Reels, all these other social media platforms, if you focus more on the subjectivity of your music rather than just a song alone, of like, go check out my song, go stream my song, that's boring, people hate that. But if you focus on the subjectivity and the story, on like the movement behind it, that's going to help you actually resonate a lot better with people.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now, we asked about your greatest challenge. What's your greatest reward as a fame hacker?
The greatest reward, honestly, the greatest reward is to actually be able to help people and help artists live out their dreams. Because it it's just like a different type of feeling, it's a different achievement. It's like, now it's not just like, look at what I'm doing, look at what I did. It's more of like, look at the impact you created.
Right.
It's like, this artist can now provide for themselves, they can provide for their family, they can actually leave a legacy. It's not only about them. For the way that I see it, for every artist that I help, remember how I said earlier, like, every person that you meet, you unlock a whole level of a whole game.
That's
For
right.
every artist that you help, you're helping all of their fans with whatever the goal of the artist is.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So like Andrew Slater, you mentioned, he did his songs about like overcoming depression. So if I were to help Andrew, it's not just helping Andrew, it's helping all of the people that are going through depression. So it's like so much bigger than all of us. And I tell artists that all the time. It's so much bigger than you. It's so much bigger than just your music. It's like the impact that you can have. That's the rewarding part.
Wow. That's beautiful. Now, why don't you go ahead and just give a shout out to one of your fame hackers who you've helped, and they're really doing it through the stratosphere. Just go out and yell his or her name out, because they're doing it. We want to give them exposure here.
Oh man, there's so many.
There's
so many, but you know what?
Yeah,
you know what? I'll give you one. Who's actually doing an amazing job is Kara King. She recently started, but she's so talented because she's doing a songwriting boot camp. So she kind of modeled after the Grow Your Fan Base boot camp. And now she's doing her own thing where she's going to teach people how to songwrite, how to write songs. Oh my gosh, this girl is so talented, not just with like writing the songs, but like the songs that she's producing, the fan club that she's creating, the offers that she's come up with. Like, oh my gosh, what an incredible and creative human being. So yeah, I think Kara King definitely deserves the recognition and the exposure.
Well, we will make sure that we put her website in the show notes here, so that she can get even greater exposure. And perhaps some of you who are watching this right now could link to her and just roll with it. Of course, the famehackers.com, the website will be in the show notes. Also, I got just one more question for you. Well, actually two. I have two questions. Okay. But the first one is, you have on the website about joining your A&R team. I definitely want to bring some more interest to that. What is that about, and how can we get started in helping?
Yeah, the A&R team. So it's something I started last year, where it was end of last year, which it definitely helps. It's for people that are interested not in being an artist, but in actually working on the music side of things. So the A&R team is essentially kind of like what I did when I first started, of like scouting talent, networking with more talent, more managers, and then creating opportunities where we can all work together. And then the A&R, so the role of the A&R is two things. One, find the talent. They're not 100% polished yet, which is where we come in.
Yeah.
So they find the talent, we help them grow, and then we pass it back to the A&R, and then the A&R can do A&R things with them. Excellent. So it's really amazing for people that are learning and trying to get their way in, because now it's not a thing of like, the music industry nowadays is like, you have to discover someone, they must be big, and then we'll actually care about you.
Right.
But for us, it's more like if you have the drive and if you know how to find talent, we'll help you polish them so then you can actually go and impress whoever you need to impress.
You just made me ask another question. See, I wasn't going to ask this, but you know, it was funny because you said when you were sitting in as an intern and you were Googling what does A&R mean. So artist and repertoire, what does that mean? So if a person, because we're going to put that in the show notes as well. So if a person signs on as we want to join your A&R team, what are you actually asking of them to do in a nutshell? What is A&R?
In a nutshell, so two things. One, scout talent and like discover talent, and two, like the artist development side of things.
Mhm.
So like as an A&R, you're kind of like the middleman between the label and the A&R or whatever, like touring, whatever comes down to it.
Yeah.
The A&R is kind of like the liaison.
Mhm.
So, but the biggest focus that we have at Fame Hackers is just like discovering talent that could be polished.
Boosted, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Well, now you know.
Yeah.
So when you see it in the show notes, and we want you to join Isabella's team. You know what you're doing. You know a little bit of what the requirement is. Now, my final question, and again, if you are a member, we're going to keep talking, but we're going to sign off in a second. But Isabella, to you, my final question here is: you've done tons of interviews, and I promised you I would try not to ask any of the questions that you were asked before, but was there a question you were expecting of me that you really wanted to get out there and I haven't asked it? So can you answer the unasked question?
Mm. I don't know. I feel like this conversation was so good, but I guess if I had to leave you guys with a parting thought, I think my biggest parting thought would be to, at the end of the day, just be authentic and be yourself, and just focus on those three things that I mentioned, like, like the artist brand offers and brand loyalty.
Yeah.
And if you can show up authentically as yourself, and you know who you are as an artist, and you know what movement you want to create, you know what good you actually want to make in the world, everything else is going to fall into place. The way that you communicate with artists, people actually, it's crazy because even though we're on social media, right, and even though like right now we're on a Zoom call, it doesn't really necessarily matter that we're not in person. If I was being insincere, you would be able to actually capture that.
Correct.
But because I'm being authentic, you guys can actually relate and resonate. So if you guys apply the same methodology of just be yourself, and like just show up how you want to show up to your fans, then everything else is going to be such a smooth sailing experience.
Wow. Well, I am so grateful to you for all of the knowledge that you shared. And I know you out there who have been watching this, I'm sure you've been eating this up. Isabella is the real deal. She has absolutely started from scratch. You heard her story. She was all about the hustle. She helped make it happen. And by God's grace, she's doing the Fame Hackers with the best of them. I am a fan, and I'm a Fame Hacker, and she's an EntreMusician. That's just the way it works, because
absolutely,
we're going, and those are those levels. But my name is Jerry B. This is Isabella Bedoya. Wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to hook up with her and her team. You are an EntreMusician. Think of yourself that way. We will see you next time. We'll have another conversation with somebody incredible. Look out for it. Hey, Roku device, you got to go to BizD. And Armstrong, if you're in Northeast Ohio or Western PA, definitely check out Armstrong Channel 100. We're grateful for the exposure. Peace and blessings to you, and we'll see you next time. God bless.